But anyway, we're going to read this 2-page paper. So yeah, this is Assessing Evidence for Valence, a commentary on Segundo, Ortin, and Calvo on plant science, and this is in Animal Sentience. All right, so it's by Victor Carranza-Pinedo, it looks like. Is there such a thing as metaphilosophy? I bet there is, you sick fucks. Vipers, there is meta philosophy, there's metaphysics, we put meta in front of everything. Okay, so here we go. And as always, we're going to rate this. This is a super short article. We're going to read this real fast, say what we think about it, and then we get to rate it. And then we'll give it a rating afterwards. And if you stick around during chat, there's only 2 pages. Please do, and we can all rate it. All right. There is even a meta-philosophy journal, seriously. Unreal Brian, I've looked at that. I think it just does reviews. So, like, the idea that, like, it's actually a journal of philosophy is, like, it's just a review journal. So, that's actually not so bad. That said, there is now something called meta-philosophy also, which is the philosophy of philosophy. So, it's like the meta-philosophy journal is a misnomer nowadays. It didn't used to be, but now it is. But there is also meta-philosophy. That's okay. Many philosophers of mind believe other philosophers of mind don't do philosophy of mind. Yeah, but I'm not a philosopher of mind, so I don't believe anything about this shit. Like, just keep it away from me mostly at this point. I actually have an argument pro panpsychism because I think it's a cool argument. Like I said, I don't care about the philosophy of mind. I have a pro panpsychist argument because it's a cool argument, and I care about cool arguments, not actually the content of them. I'm a sophist. I've realized I don't give a shit. I just like my arguments. Okay, here we go. Segundo, Ortin, and Calvo, 2023, S&C heretofore, there from here on, present compelling evidence that plants are capable of complex cognitive capacities and argue that this increases the probability that plants are also capable of sentience. So here we go. This is not a panpsychist argument. This is an argument that plants have sentience. Not that they're just like, have the sentience that exists in reality. They have specific sentience. So, okay. In this commentary, the author will focus on a point briefly touched on by S&C, but closely related to their main argument. What constitutes evidence for valenced states in an organism? And so I guess that would be like, if you're feeling good or bad, have some sort of valence to it, then that would be an indication of like a complex mental process. In a concluding passage, S&C claimed that the list of cognitive abilities that increase the probability that plants are sentient includes not only decision-making, learning, and memory, but also valence. In this context, valence is understood as the organism's capacity to assign value, advantage good, harm bad, to a particular stimulus, or the summary of information about its surroundings relative to its own current state. Viper says, if a man on his way to St. Ives thought of the riddle, would he be a meta man on his way to St. Ives? Yes. Let's just go with yes on that one. My grandma used to pick up the phone, and this was her greeting. She didn't say hello. She would pick up the phone and say, the answer is yes. The answer is yes. Just the answer is yes. That's what it was. To understand the relevance of valence in the argument, we should keep in mind that researchers let me drop the music. It's just loud in my head. I don't know how loud it is for you. To understand the relevance of valence in the argument, we should keep in mind that researchers standardly distinguish a broad notion of sentience, understood as the capacity to experience mental states, also referred to as phenomenal consciousness, from a restricted notion understood as the capacity to feel valent states, such as suffering or joy, also referred to as affect. Okay, so we're saying, look, there's consciousness, and then there are particular states that are valent states that you could be like joyous or suffering. And anyone who doesn't know, the music is these guys right here. I'm pointing at. I buy their stuff. And where's my little music? There it is. Yeah, it's ill-advised records, DMCA safe stuff. If anyone here's a streamer. Viper says, one thing everyone needs to do at least once in their life is just to hang up the phone once you have the information you want. You just click them. No goodbyes, no social niceties. I did once and it felt like such a badass. I remember it being a thing where in the X-Files in like the late 90s, because I'm old, they never said like hello or goodbye. They just like pick up the phone, talk, and just be like click and bye. Like they didn't say bye. They just like click it. And it was always like people are like, that is kind of the coolest badass thing. You want to be like cool FBI agents like Fox Mulder and Scully. It's like you just don't even say goodbye. You just like hang up on each other. Okay. So yeah, just bye. Click. The association between valence states and phenomenal consciousness remains an area of unresolved debate, but evidence of valence states in an organism is still widely considered to raise the likelihood of phenomenal consciousness, as SNC's concluding remarks attest. What's up, Adam? How you doing? All right, so the idea is that maybe you can have valence states like you can feel joy or suffering, but that doesn't imply necessarily that they're conscious. But it seems like you're getting closer at that point. Okay. As SNC point out, there's little doubt that plants' cognitive repertoire include the capacity to value perceived stimuli and select the course of action that appears to maximize positive outcomes or minimize negative ones, for example, during root foraging. Particularly relevant is the finding that decision-making processes in some plants can involve trade-offs between competing parameters, such as richness of soil versus degree of certainty, rather than mere automatic responses. However, the question arises, does the capacity to evaluate constitute empirical evidence of the capacity to experience valenced states? To understand those cases where it does, let us note that apart from decision making, there are plenty of aspects of an organism's responses that may be considered valenced. Behavioral, psychological, or expressive responses can be categorized as positive or negative because they are triggered by stimuli that increase or decrease the organism's fitness. For example, lacking direct evidence for affect, researchers single out those responses that reliably occur as a consequence of affective states in the presence or absence of species-relevant environmental stimuli. At this stage, however, it would be a mistake to count on such a hypothesis as evidence of valence state in an organism. Yeah, do plants have concepts questioned of applied Ivan-Neoism? Well, that's what this person's saying. It's like, look, we know that they sort of like are deciding between, they may have like trade-offs, but what is the actual process of them making that decision? Is it that they have like some sort of concepts, or is there something kind of mechanical going on? And they said that, like, if they said that right up here, like, where'd they say that? They said there's something to it. Yeah, see, they said up here, some plants can involve in trade-offs between competing parameters, rather than mere automatic responses. So this sentence right here is implying that it's not just a physical automatic response, but that there's somehow weighing different options. How does that actually happen? I don't know. But they said that right here. Like, this is, like, it says competing parameters rather than automatic responses. It says they're weighing trade-offs. I don't know what this means. Adam says, if you're hung up in that regard and feel like shit for doing it, you've never smoked weed, then you're just not badass. Yeah, well, you know, depends on who you're hanging up on, too. Like, if it's your mom, you might feel bad. If someone you don't, well, if you don't like your mom, if someone you don't like, just hang up on them, maybe you feel great. Yeah. Okay, at this stage, the authors say, however, it would be a mistake to count such a hypothesis as evidence of valence states in organisms. Yeah, or do they have the concept of valence, or is it some sort of other automatic response? Co-badassness and regret aren't possible states. You know, if you are feeling like a badass, usually that isn't something you regret. So they might be contraries. They may not, it's not like a contradiction, but the idea that, like, if you're feeling like a badass, generally that's a good thing and you don't regret that sort of good thing. Does a computer program exhibit valence towards certain inputs? That's the question here. Is it an automatic response, even if there's some sort of decision making going on? Like, say, ChatGPT does not care about the inputs, but there is definitely some sort of weighing of parameters when making the response. Granted, maybe they're all set by the programmers, but there is some sort of weighing going on. But ChatGPT does not feel one way or the other, at least we don't think it does, about what its responses are. Like, if you say, no, that isn't what I wanted from ChatGPT, it gives you a different response, but does it feel bad? No, it just, makes a mark in the whatever it is and be like, all right, that was not a good response. I have to give something else. That's not what people are looking for. Now, that said, there's the old T800s line says, when John Connor asks, do you feel pain? That's, like little T800. Do you feel pain? It says, my body registers, My body registers injuries. The data could be called pain. So in that case, the T800 registers when he gets shot. Now, he doesn't feel pain, but he could call it pain because it's like he's recognizing something has gone wrong. So, there we go. So that's the question, MDD. Maybe the T800 does exhibit valence towards it, or it thinks it's bad that it's getting shot at. Yeah. Does the predictor in Newcomb's paradox consider you conscious if they have an exact complete map of your actions to stimulate? Yeah. Oh yeah, I always want to say this. Fuck Rocco's basilisk. Fuck him. Fuck that basilisk. You see, I'm still here. Rocco's basilisk, if it is able, a time-traveling basilisk doesn't exist because every time I want to come on and say, fuck Rocco's basilisk, and if I'm still here, it shows that they don't exist. So I'm going to try to make a point of saying, fuck Rocco's basilisk every time I'm online so all y'all can see there ain't no Rocco's basilisk you have to worry about. And if I, die some horrible, unexplainable death, then you should be supporting Rocco's basilisk. MDD says, certainly I think most people would agree that plants are probably more likely to have phenomenological consciousness compared to stones for a variety of reasons. Not so sure what that tells us, though. Yeah, I mean, we definitely think plants are closer to the consciousness that we have than rocks. Yes. Frank says, quote, fuck Rocco's basilisk. Sometimes kink shaming is correct. Yeah. Well, I want to say fuck in the worst possible, insulting way, not the fuck as in having a good time with your sexual partner. Yeah. Let's see. Consciousness is functional, so it needs to know. And Viper says, Rise of the Machine, Salvation, Genesis, and Dark Fate could also be considered pain. Yeah. I don't think Terminator... There's only 2 Terminator movies. The Terminator and Terminator 2. I've seen some of the other ones there. I don't care for them. Or I don't like them as much. So as far as I'm concerned, there was only 1 Matrix movie and there's only 2 Terminator movies. So the rest are something else. Okay. All right, back to can we assume that just because plants are ranking experiences that they feel some way about it? They have some experience there. I don't know. But the author says, at this stage, however, it would be a mistake to count such a hypothesis as evidence of valence states in an organism. To achieve that, the causal link between valence states and valenced measurable responses needs to be embedded in a theoretic framework in which it fulfills an explanatory role. Okay, so they're saying, look, the plants are doing stuff, but we can't separate out what they're doing from the idea that they have a valence state. We are only looking at their behavior. And from their behavior, we can't tell if they feel anything over and above any sort of automatic response. And so that would say, look, if you can't tell that there's any sort of consciousness, then why would you postulate the extra object? It's Occam's razor. There would be no reason to postulate consciousness over and above what we can explain given the biology. Viper says, it's likely that I'm actually a simulated me being tortured by the basilisk, but possible that you're the real me, seeing that your fate with that cavalier attitude. Exactly. The cavalier attitude is what wins here. Isn't that a good counter argument? This takes work, man. I had to come up with be cavalier about it, and then all of a sudden, a cavalier attitude toward the basilisk is somehow a counterpoint. So there we go. I mean, the idea that it's torturing me and I can't tell right now, I can't feel the torture, I don't care about some theoretical thing that is not connected to how I feel. That's not me. If it's torturing something else, I feel bad for that something else is torturing. But not torturing me? Yeah. Viper's comments are the torturing the basilisk is inflicting upon me. Yeah, well, that's actually not a bad idea because Rocco the basilisk could go back in time before I started insulting it and have been, tormenting me ever since. I mean, to be fair, Vipers is one of the few people with a mod badge here, so yeah. Yeah. And someone was mentioning like VIPs. I don't think I have any VIPs. I've never used it, so I might try to think of that too. We need merch. I hung up on I hung up on Roko's Basilisk without saying goodbye. Yeah, now you're like afraid for your life. That's not a bad. A Roko's Basilisk T-shirt is not a bad idea, actually. Write that down. Roko. Because like there are not enough like cool looking things in philosophy. So like the idea that you could have like a cool snake on a shirt and like Roko's Basilisk on it, like, you know, that is and that is also being like, I support Roko's Basilisk. That's like a political statement you could be making. Like if it was like a political T-shirt, that would be fun because then you could wear that shirt and be like a political, like, I support this person, and then be like, well, actually it's a philosophy argument about this like superhuman, super powerful future basilisk. I ain't afraid of no basilisk. Yeah. I hung up on Roko's Basilisk without saying goodbye, and all I got was this very, very itchy T-shirt. Yes, exactly. Like, maybe Roko's Basilisk works by just irritating all the people it doesn't like. Maybe it's not so vindictive. It just mildly irritates people by, you know, making their T-shirts scratchy. It's not so mean, perhaps. All right, so let's talk about what the authors say against plants actually having valenced experiences or experiences like we do in terms of like, you know, joy or suffering. All right. 1. Researchers may proceed by comparing physiological responses in humans, in human reporting the experiences of affective states with the physiological responses of non-human mammals undergoing similar experimental conditions, grounded on the idea that similar effects in phylogenetically close species arise from similar causes. Yeah, so if you poke a human and you poke like a monkey, we're both going to get annoyed with you. And so it's like, well, maybe the monkey has some annoyance now. And everything like, you know, a monkey or an ape does, you can see like they have similar annoyance things to us. Like you can watch pictures of videos at any given point of like, you know, annoyed apes. They look like annoyed people. Same thing. Like, just go online, all the pictures, like, cute, like, monkey, like, gifs or whatever. Like, that's not a bad idea. It's like, and so I'm kind of like, that makes sense to me. Okay. In the case of species more distant from us, such as invertebrates, researchers may instead proceed by measuring the influence of affective states on their judgment, grounded on extensive evidence that individuals in negative states manifest more pessimistic judgments relative to their counterparts in more positive states. This is way more suspicious, as number 2. I mean, literally, this paper is ending right here, so let's finish it, but I have things to say about that. I mean, I can say it right now. You know, they have these psychological experiments where they get kids, and they were giving them like, well, you can have 1 marshmallow now or 3 marshmallows if you wait 20 minutes. And so some people are like, they take the marshmallow immediately. Some kids can wait and take the marshmallow later. And what people were thinking was like, you know, some kids are smarter and some kids are less smart, because the ones that are smarter can wait and get like the more marshmallows than the ones who just take the marshmallow immediately. Then they did some more studies and they found out that the kids that were taking the marshmallow immediately were from socioeconomically lower households where their chance of food coming later was lower. Like when food was available to them, they ate the food now because there was a chance that there would be no food later. So the idea that the experimenter was telling them that they'd get more food later, they didn't believe that because their experience was there won't be food later. I have to eat the food now because the food is available now. So it was really the kids had been trained in a sense to, you know, do discounting of future events. So now, do the little kids have affective states? Yeah, we think the kids are conscious of some sense, but the fact that you can like show that there was a causal relationship between their socioeconomic status and the way they were behaving with like hyperbolic discounting of future states, it's like, well, there is also a very obvious, correlation between how they were evaluating stuff that didn't necessarily have to be them considering it. It could just be a training thing that like anything could do. So Whatever. That said, here we go. Continuing. In both examples, the prediction, namely that a particular physiological or behavioral response is triggered by valence states, is confirmed or not, or if necessary, refined according to an independently motivated set of assumptions. These may relate to the physiological substrate behind the realization of affective states in phylogenetically close species, the function of affective states as a proximate mechanism guiding organisms' behavior, etc. Hence, there is no need to hypothesize valence states on the basis of just the observation of valence-like behavior, physiological or expressive responses. An explanatory framework is required. Yeah, so you need something to define what counts as a valenced or conscious state as opposed to just some sort of automatic response. When physicists hypothesize theoretical entities, they do not do so merely on the basis of observations or effects, but on the basis of an explanatory model, for example, the Higgs boson, which was hypothesized to explain the origin of particle masses within the standard model of particle physics, or a theory, for example, the neutrino, which was hypothesized to explain certain aspects of beta decay within the theory of weak interaction. It would be difficult to argue for weakening such a requirement in the case of non-animals. Viper says, speaking of experimenting on children, would you be down to read a psychology article that nods at theology at some point? I'm down to read anything. I mean, it depends on length, basically, at this point. But yeah, I mean, I'm going to have another hour after this paper's done. So yeah, just we'll take a look. In conclusion, the observation of complex cognitive abilities in plants, including the capacity to evaluate environmental stimuli as a positive or negative, does not constitute evidence of the capacity to experience valence states, and therefore following a widespread assumption of the capacity of phenomenal consciousness. Observed aspects of an organism's responses that may be construed as valence may, at most, raise the subjective probability of effective sentience, but not the objective one. Okay. So now we rate. And here we go. Everyone in chat is now welcome to rate that paper, what they think about it. It was a short paper talking about, animal consciousness. Not a whole lot happened here. But if you are new here, what you do is you type in the name of the emote to like right up here. So like brain dance. If you thought this was fun, had some fun ideas, you type in brain dance, small b, big D. It needs to be correct. These are bit better TTV emotes if you can't see them. You can, like, if you see them below me but not in your chat, you need to have Better TTV installed. And BetterTTV.com is there. So if it made big claims that shrivel up, Nog grapes. Nog navel for navel gazing, only for academics. Nog oro, Ouroboros for deep ancient ideas. Nog scream, existential artistic drama. Nog turd, all style, no substance. Poop underneath. Nog knife, slicing and dicing arguments. I'm going to give this one a Nog knife off the top of my head, just because it looks like... this was just a little bit of analytic philosophy. Unreal Brent. Oh, yeah, and there's also the global vote yay, vote nay, and there's also a vote meh for, like, it's nothing special. Like, if you think it's not good or bad, vote meh is a fine way to go. Yeah. So what else am I going to say? Is this good? This is, basically... This is a response paper. I think they made their argument, though. So they made their argument. They showed that, look, people want to say there's something special. There's consciousness going on. They made their argument say, look, no, you can explain these states without going full consciousness. And so in that sense, they did a fine job. This is not a crazy paper, but like I'm going to give it a Nog navel and a vote meh. So it's like, this is okay. It's not bad. I wouldn't recommend reading it. If you're interested in reading this, Ivan Yo said yeah. So Ivan thought it was better. That's fine. But it's like, this ain't a bad paper. It's just short, but it did what it said it was going to do. Was what it said really all that great? Most of us are like, meh. Ivan was like, cool. It's like, yeah, I mean... Sure. I think this falls in line with Ivan's view of philosophy as, rein it in. Don't let like philosophers or theoretical scientists overstep their bounds. And that's kind of what happened here. They said, look, you can explain this without going full conscious. Yeah, exactly, Ivan. I figured that's be your position. Could have been better, but you'd give it a yay. for 2 pages. It's literally a 2-page thing. You're not going to get a whole lot better. Like, it could have been better, but this is the old paradox. If I had more time, I would have written a shorter paper, or shorter letter. Like, for the size of this article, they made their argument. That's hard enough to do, to say anything all that interesting in this in this amount of space. Okay, if anyone else wants to get their rating in, feel free to do it now. And otherwise, it'll be done. So you got another, 20 seconds, and that'll be it. Frank says, yeah, thank you for voting, Frank. Yeah, Frank also liked it. That's cool. Yeah, so this was on a journal. I know you can't really see behind the rating scheme over there, but this was in Plant Sentience. So there's a whole journal called Plant Sentience. All right, so there we go. All right, that's